Now, what is this story about? Can it really be the case that British schools are switching to yoga, trampolining, circus skills, cheerleading instead of competitive sport? That's Britain that's hosting the Olympic Games in just 2 years from now. That's Britain, 3 of whose teams never made it to the World Cup finals, and another of whose teams performed embarrassingly badly there. Is this the Britain whose top football leagues are filled with people from other countries because not enough of the young people from our own country are forcing their way through into our national sport? Why are we still in huge numbers watching competitive sport but not taking part in it? 6 out of 10 of the school children in Britain don't ever play competitive sport during their school day. I think that's absolutely shocking. What kind of physical exercise is yoga? What kind of physical exercise, beyond kicking up your knees and rah-rahing, is cheerleading? What are circus skills? What happened to football, rugby, hockey, cricket? What happened to athletics? Surely team sports are good for the individual and good for the collective, teaching young people of the importance of working and striving together for goals that are worthy of pursuit. One person who will have a point of view, I'm sure, is Ali Oliver, the sports director at the Youth Sports Trust, and she joins us now. Ali, welcome very warmly to the show. Thanks for joining us so late.
No problem, you're welcome.
Were you surprised at these figures, or had you already known them, and what do you think of them?
Well, we do know where things are at in school sport, but I think the good news is, I have to say after your introduction there, George, the good news is that while we are seeing the introduction of a whole range of new and different sports, such as cheerleading and yoga...
Well, let me stop, Ali, can I stop you there?
Yeah,
I'm sorry to do it so early in your contribution, but how can you describe cheerleading as a sport?
Well, it is a sport. It absolutely is a sport. It's a recognised sport with a governing body in this country. And many young people find their way into cheerleading, particularly out of gymnastics, those young people who have taken part in gymnastics at a younger age.
Isn't cheerleading cheering other people who are doing sport?
There is an element of cheerleading which is about doing that, but absolutely there is a sport there in its own right, with its own competitive structure, and young people compete against each other in that. But the important thing is that these activities are now being introduced to schools alongside all of the other traditional sports that you mentioned. So it's not instead of, it's alongside. And the better news beyond that is that they are now engaging a whole group of young people who perhaps had not previously been engaged or attracted to some of those more traditional sports.
Well, you say that, but the schools' figures I'm looking at show, for example, that 66% of schools offer rugby, which is down from 74% just 4 years ago. Hockey is played at 73%, down from 78% 3 years ago. And netball just played at 79% of schools. So these figures are plummeting, whilst presumably yoga and cheerleading and circus skills is going up.
I wouldn't say they're plummeting. I think all of those statistics show that all of those traditional sports are still really, really popular and still form the core basis of sport and PE within our schools. But what you are seeing is a transition, certainly a response to young people's interests, with a broadening of the activities that are on offer.
Yeah, but I mean, if I'd been left to choose, I would never have played rugby because I wanted to play football. But at my school, for the first 3 years, you had to play rugby. And it was very good that they forced me to play rugby. Surely it's not a question just of responding to children seeing cheerleading on the television and wanting to put on a short skirt and getting a rattle to birtle around.
I'm not sure how many cheerleading coaches would appreciate that, but I mean, first of all,
cheerleading coaches.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's a thing called a cheerleading coach.
Yes, there is, absolutely. I think the point is, George, that We're facing a real dilemma in this country with increasing levels of inactivity, certainly at adult levels, and obviously problems around obesity that result from low levels of physical activity alongside other things. So what's really important is that we do find things that interest and engage kids. And just in your language there, you talked about, you were being forced to play rugby, and sometimes young people being forced to play sports that they don't find comfortable or they don't find appealing can actually turn them off sport for the rest of their lives. So there is an important job for physical education within the school curriculum to play in exposing kids to a whole range of sports. But then importantly in their school sporting experience, the thing that happens in the extracurricular time is that they can find something that will engage them.
But Ali, we don't let children decide whether they want to study English or maths. We force them to do it because we know that it's good for them. We must surely, in the face of the fact that we're the fattest country in all of Europe, know that it's good for children to do exercise. And I'm sorry, cheerleading ain't exercise. It's at least not in my book. How are we going to do it, the cheerleading in the Olympic Games?
Well, I disagree with you. Cheerleading absolutely is a very valid physical activity. But if we get away from cheerleading, you mentioned trampolining in your introduction there. Trampolining is an Olympic sport. It's a fantastic sport, and it is engaging a huge number of young people in this country, as would be new sports such as handball, for example, another Olympic sport that we'll all see showcased in 2012, but hasn't traditionally been played in our schools. And what we're very keen to do at the Youth Sport Trust is work with schools to encourage them to expose young people to all these new Olympic and Paralympic sports. So when they see them hopefully on the television in 2012 and are inspired to want to take them up, that actually they can find an outlet for that within their school sport.
Well, thanks for boxing with me, Ali. I appreciate it. Sorry if I was a little rough. I just find it impossible. I was going to say difficult, but impossible to take cheerleading as a sport seriously, notwithstanding what Ali said. And if you say to kids, your compulsory physical education can be discharged by taking cheerleading, putting on a short skirt, white socks, getting a rattle or some kind of feather boa and cheering other people who are actually doing sport, I just cannot accept that that is a serious physical education and must be connected to the fact that A, we're so miserable at real sport, and B, that our people are the fattest people in Europe. Discuss